We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Truth, justice, freedom, and equality, eternal values on which to found an ideal society. But today in Washington, D.C., the White House stands next to the Treasury. And although the dollar bill reads, "In God we trust," it is obvious that this country's value system is nothing more than dollars and cents. There is a crisis in values here in D.C. today. The mayor is concerned because children are killing children. But in a society which values dollars above life, violence and confusion would be the norm. Proposition 1 is an idea to begin turning the value system around. For too long, human society has served a god of death. The time has come to embody law intended to honor the god of life.
President Truman had obtained a monstrous weapon and started his gamble.
The city roughly was about 4 miles in diameter. By that time, we were at our bombing altitude of 32,000 feet. The navigator came up looking over his shoulder. He says, "Yes, that's Hiroshima, there's no doubt about it." We were so well on the target that the bombardier says, "I can't do anything, there's nothing to do." He said, "It's just sitting there." The bomb left the airplane, and at that particular time, all 3 airplanes then did this very tight turn. Even though it was bright sunshine, it was evident by the brilliance of the flash that something unusual had happened, and obviously it was the bomb exploding. After the weapon had exploded, I couldn't see any city down there. But what I saw was a tremendous area covered by, and the only way I could describe it, a boiling black mass.
3 days later, a second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki.
We scientists who release this immense power have overwhelming responsibility to bring realization to America that mankind's destiny is being decided today, now, this moment. We ask your help in this fateful moment as sign that we scientists do not stand alone. I agree.
I'm Ted Taylor. I'm a physicist. I started out as a nuclear physicist working on the design of nuclear weapons at Los Alamos during the early 1950s. I did this with great enthusiasm. I thought that I was doing something badly needed by my country and the world. I went through about 16 years of enthusiastically supporting the development of all kinds of new types of nuclear weapons at Los Alamos, and then as a physicist at General Atomic Company in San Diego. And here in Washington in the mid-1960s, from the Pentagon, where I was in charge of the U.S. Defense Department's work on trying to understand the effects of nuclear weapons. In the midst of that 2 years in the Pentagon, I did a complete flip. I realized that it's evil. It is a matter of using instruments of the devil, as far as I'm concerned, and it must stop. There is no excuse for mass indiscriminate murder of people that have nothing to do with these decisions. We have to find ways to get rid of the weapons. This is why I strongly support Proposition 1. For government by the people to be possible, it's necessary that people be informed, that they know what is true, that they know what is not true. Today, much of what we are told, and I'm afraid much of what we tell each other, is not true.
Well, now then, James, will you tell them that the United States government now wants to turn this great destructive force into something good for mankind, something good for mankind, something good for mankind. All right, is that all? Okay, got it.
Be sure to cover our eyes when they count down to 0. 2, 1, 0.
Thinking back, just 60 years ago, nobody ever even conceived of the idea. Now we've got them, and they've become such a part of our life, although most of us have never even seen one of them, that we can't imagine how we can live without them anymore. This is money that's being poured into an abyss, basically. I mean, if we're lucky, we'll never use the things that we bought with the money. And if we're not lucky, then we'll use them and we'll be sorry we used them.
Human beings created the problem of nuclear weapons. Human beings can solve the problem of nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons are a tragedy, from the invention, the testing, their barbaric use against innocent people. The continued existence of nuclear weapons is a tragedy. The United States spends more than $30 billion a year to maintain its nuclear warfighting capability. At the same time, as President Eisenhower noted, people hunger and are not fed, people are cold and not clothed.
In July 1998, the Brookings Institute reported that since the Manhattan Project, the United States has spent $5.8 trillion to perfect its nuclear arsenal. At the time, that was equal to roughly $1,000 for every man, woman, and child on the face of the planet.
Because just about 8 years ago, at the end of the Cold War, we had hope. There was going to be a peace dividend. And that peace dividend would include addressing this nuclear question and getting rid of these engines of destruction. The reality, of course, has turned out to be entirely different.
Save our citizens, because we're going off. I mean, we are really getting in a bad way here. Too many people are homeless. You know, there's too much going on, and God doesn't like that. God wants us to get together as a people.
The proposal that all nuclear weapons should be abolished was seriously and widely publicly made by Mikhail Gorbachev in January of 1986. Several years later, 1989, Rajiv Gandhi, when he was Prime Minister of India, called for elimination of all nuclear weapons no later than 2010. The problem right now is over here in the White House.
Some will say that these initiatives call for a budget windfall for domestic programs. But the peace dividend I seek is not measured in dollars, but in greater security. In the near term, some of these steps may even cost money.
The Stealth costs about $600 million a plane.
We must fully fund the B-2 and SDI program.
Now you go in, you vote for president after president after president, and everything stays the same. So people get apathetic and fed up, and that's natural, I think.
They've apparently struck up a pretty good acquaintanceship and really have gotten along quite well.
This year, many people urged me to cut our defense spending further to pay for other government programs. I said no. We must not cut defense further. I hope the Congress, without regard to party, will support that position.
Just a year and a half ago, the President of the United States determined that the world's most powerful nation must depend for security upon the availability and use of nuclear weapons. That's a formal policy of the United States of America today. Our security will depend indefinitely upon nuclear weapons. In pronouncing that, he declared that that gave us the right to make first use of those weapons. First use against non-nuclear states, if we deemed it in our interests. By our behavior, the United States and Russia, we threaten the existence of the non-proliferation regime in the world. They used to have a no first use doctrine. They said, as moral people, we will not make first use of nuclear weapons. Now they've renounced that. They say that nuclear weapons are their security because we threaten them and they have no other form of military power, no form of political power, no form of economic power. They're a destitute, bankrupt nation, and yet they have thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons, including weapons on hair trigger alert. And we have, in effect, contributed to that situation in Russia. If the superpowers, the great nuclear giants, say we have to have these weapons for our security, what are they telling other nations? We've seen in India and Pakistan, just in the last year and a half, their actual testing of nuclear weapons to join the nuclear powers. We know that there are other ones. They're only the tip of the iceberg. Iran, Iraq, North Korea, and others are attempting to pursue the possession of nuclear weapons, create them.
The real key to this problem lies with the big powers. But I'm afraid that they do not show any sincerity. There is a lot of double talk. Big nations talk of peace, but all the time they're preparing for war and increasing their stockpiles. They pay lip service to disarmament, but they go on rearming themselves. And I think they hold the key to the whole situation.
If the superpowers were determined to end nuclear warfare, they could jointly put an end to it and prevent it occurring anywhere else. But if they are themselves preparing for a mutual conflict, they lose their moral authority.
It has to start here. We started the nuclear age. We're the only nation ever to use nuclear weapons. If we say that they're the cornerstone of our security, we're never going to get rid of them. So it has to start here, which means the American people have to be the engine for change. They have to become alarmed and concerned and active and convince our leadership that we will lead the world toward nuclear abolition. And then it has to become a global effort, just like the nuclear freeze became in the 80s. It started here in the United States, but pretty soon there were people in Munich and people in Milan and people in South Africa. There were people all over the world demonstrating against nuclear weapons. And I think we can build that sort of spirit and concern and activism with the facts.
This is a call to action. Proposition 1, voter initiative for binational nuclear disarmament and economic conversion.
Proposition 1 is the most important initiative to have gotten started in this whole country in a long time.
The purpose of Proposition 1 is to make it a matter of the highest law of the land to prohibit the possession of any nuclear weapons of any kind. The center of the action on Proposition 1 is going to be over there in the Capitol. It's something which is gathering momentum. It is something which makes a matter of U.S. law from the most fundamental viewpoint.
And here in Washington, D.C., the Proposition 1 evolved into Initiative 37.
In September, district voters will elect a new D.C. council chair to serve the remainder of the late John Wilson's term. While the special election has received much attention in its early stages, many D.C. voters are not aware of Initiative 37, the other question that will appear on the ballot.
Initiative 37 would urge D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton to introduce a constitutional amendment in Congress to dismantle all nuclear weapons by the year 2000, convert all weapons plants into peacetime industries, and in the initiative's dreamiest language, try to eliminate war and all military operations. A Washington Post editorial trashed the initiative, saying voters should vote no since a vote of "are you kidding" is not available.
I think that the people in the district should not take seriously the Washington Post on such matters, which feels itself very much tied into the national security state and is indeed very much part of that particular wing of the palace court. I think that what they have to explain at this point is why they are so committed to hugging nuclear weapons, given the fact that there is no earthly use for nuclear weapons.
Come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. It says, come, rest here by my side. Each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made, proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the rock were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing.
I brought this to the attention of our board and said, this is an arms control issue which is coming up. We ought to look at it and see whether we endorse it or whether we oppose it. Well, we got out our positions and we looked at the initiative and we felt that the two did not mesh, and that on the basis of the positions that we had adopted nationally, we could not support this. I should say that both organizations have the elimination of nuclear weapons as a goal, but the significant difference is that Initiative 37 wants to accomplish this by the year 2000, and the League says that this is a long-term goal.
The problem that we now face is that it is very difficult to break in to the closed circle of debate on so-called national security issues. And the only way that one can do that in a serious way is, as I've suggested, through such people's action or citizen action. Arguing through the specific niceties in terms of changing the language can be done over the course of the next year, 2 or 3, as those problems of language are ironed out.
A lot of people, said, oh, don't add a bunch of junk to our Constitution. Well, this isn't a bunch of junk.
There's been an attempt here to try to frame the issue in ways that in fact embrace a larger number of people. So that's not a problem. My problem is the notion of putting issues of war and peace in the Constitution would be regarded in the Congress as so naive as to be unworthy of attention. Mm-hmm. So people would write me off and write the notion of nobody would join in that, not a single member of Congress.
Every idea is considered stupid until it becomes a reality.
Those people who are stand-patters, who are part of the status quo, do not want to see this system changed. And they certainly don't want to see any changes occur as a result of citizen action. And that's a grievous error on their part, but it is also a challenge on the part of those committed to democracy.
Killing is wrong, and nuclear weapons are the ultimate killer of mankind, so they should be banned.
Well, you need some kind of defense for this country, wouldn't you? Right. So if you do that, what are you going to do then?
Well, what you do then, peace activists say, is to use the money saved from defense and put it to better use.
Billions of dollars are spent every year on nuclear weapons that could be going into housing and health care and education and making sure that the future is insured and safer for our children.
And I also asked myself why it was that this initiative got really such a response from the voters, because it received more votes than Dave Clark, who was running for the vacant seat. And in thinking about it, I've concluded, now this may be wrong, but the city is so troubled by violence. And of course, nuclear weapons are the ultimate violence.
I cannot really believe that people are killing other people, how bloody it could be.
It's making people think. That's the main thing, making people think.
Some of you may know that the residents in the District of Columbia approved a resolution that would say that Congress cannot do any more nuclear weapons testing or building or anything in regard to nuclear weapons. The only problem was they wanted the Congress to change the Constitution, and that would be very hard to do. So what our representative, Eleanor Holmes Norton, is working on is to try to introduce legislation and get support for that to ban nuclear weapons, nuclear testing, and all of that.
First, let me tell you how this effort got started. I want to particularly welcome those of my constituents who are responsible for the success of Ballot 37 at the polls in 1993. Since that time, I have introduced this bill based on that initiative every year. My hope is not that one day the Republican Congress will get religion and understand they ought to pass my bill all at one time. I do not live in fairyland. But that gradually this bill and parts of this bill will capture the imagination of a majority of Congress. And I try to link my introduction of the bill every year to some current notions that I think make the bill more and more timely. On the 54th anniversary of the explosion of the first nuclear test in New Mexico, I introduced the Nuclear Disarmament and Economic Conversion Act of 1999. This must be the third or fourth time I've introduced it. The bill is simple. It would require the United States to disable and dismantle its nuclear weapons and to refrain from replacing them with weapons of mass destruction once foreign countries possessing nuclear weapons enact and execute similar requirements. The bill also provides that the resources used to sustain our nuclear weapon program be used to address human and infrastructure needs such as housing, health care, education, agriculture, and the environment. So I would see a direct transfer of funds.
We have to get our spending priorities straight, and we have to do it now. And I'm pleased to be signing on as a co-sponsor of Delegate Norton's Nuclear Disarmament and Economic Conversion Act of 1999, and if it doesn't pass this year, I'll sign on it the next Congress, and the next Congress, and the next Congress, until it will. My own bill, H-Res 82, would work as a complement to Eleanor's bill. H-Res 82 calls on the President to use the United Nations Model Nuclear Weapons Convention as a guideline to start multilateral negotiations to rid all countries of nuclear weapons.
I send dear colleagues and say co-sponsor my bill. But the way people come onto bills is the way Lynn Woolsey got here. Did some of you ask Lynn to come? Yeah, she's from California. But if you let a bill just lie in the hopper, there it lies. The way it jumps out of the hopper is that other members join in on the bill, and I would ask you to contact members of your network to ask them to write their congressman, or better still, call.
We will be, as Ms. Norton asked and encouraged us to do, we will be contacting our members and asking them to urge their members of Congress to become co-sponsors of this legislation. Physicians for Social Responsibility has been striving for nearly 40 years to rid this nation and the entire planet of a grave threat to public health, nuclear weapons. And today I want to commend Ms. Norton and Ms. Woolsey and all those in Congress who are striving for the same goal.
Groups like this are helpful. You get the information out. It shows to everybody that there are concerned, informed individuals who want to change what's going on in the world today. So let's cling together, let's work together, let's count on each other, and let's get on with this imperative. Rid the world of nuclear weapons.
We need your support. Proposition 1 is going to require massive public support. That support can be amplified if you give it in whatever way you can.
It's going to take a whole new way of thinking to convince people that we can live without weapons, and this is going to take time.
You gotta revolutionize your mind if you're to leave the evil ones behind. If you're to be the guiding light of the blind, you must have faith in the world. You gotta put the love back on your feet. You got to carry it out to the street. Give it to the people you meet, and you will bring change to the world.